Hey everybody, it's Ryan with Propelio. Today on the show we have Mr. Ron Carlson from Renovation Gurus. How are you today, sir?
Man, I'm doing great.
Excellent. What we're going to be talking about today is like mistakes that investors make when they're doing their fix and flips. Ron is not only is he an investor, but he owns a rehabbing company, contracting company. So it's kind of cool to see somebody that actually does the investing stuff, but also the fix and flip stuff as a business. Before we get into that, I do want to say, hey, if you've never checked out Propelio.com, do it. I mean, if you in this business, you need true MLS comps. You need to know your numbers, and the only way you have the ability to get those numbers is not through like a Zillow, not through like a Redfin, not through what your neighbor tells you what the house is. You got to have accurate comps, and you can get that through Propelio. We also are doing beta testing on our website, so check that out, and off-market leads. That is your over-the-top subtle plug for the day. Ron, welcome. Who are you?
Also, I guess I'm an investor first and foremost. A couple years ago, I started off wholesaling in 2009. Since then, I have graduated to do a lot more things, and kind of the process of my life started off wholesaling, turned into a flipper. Flipping led me into hiring a contractor because you need contractors. I started buying more houses than my contractor could handle, and so I started hiring more contractors. I fired a whole bunch of contractors. Have horror stories. I lost $21,000 on one house. I lost $24,000 on another house. I lost six figures on another house.
Because that's fun.
No, it's not fun at all. But you progress and you push through and you make it happen. And I've learned things from the eyes of an investor when I was hiring contractors, and then since then we fired everybody and we just started Renovation Gurus, and now we started working on our own houses, and we started rehabbing for friends and hard money lenders, and now we're rehabbing for the whole general public.
So basically you started out as an investor,
yes.
If I'm hearing this correctly. You got, and we'll get into all the probably the issues that you had with your typical contractors, thus creating your own company for the specific reason of rehabbing your properties.
That's correct.
And then all of a sudden it's like, well, maybe I have too much, I don't have enough work, but I need to keep my guys busy, so let's get some more people.
Two things happened. One, we could only buy 5 or 6 houses in the beginning, like say a month or in a 2-month period of time. So we realized very quickly that our guys would go somewhere else, and then to get them back and back on page and back into your little cookie cutter program that we were doing, it's very hard. So by rehabbing other people's houses, at least we could keep those crews around. And then something else happened by default, and that's our vendors started giving us better pricing, because now, for example, when I started off flooring, I was doing $5,000 or $7,000, $10,000 of flooring. Now I do $100,000, $150,000 of flooring a month, and so my pricing for flooring is down, and then we can then pass that off to everyone else as far as remodeling goes, which also then in return lowers my rehabs a little bit. So kind of selfishly, I'm rehabbing for other people, but we are rehabbing a bunch of houses for other people.
But the main reason is the real reason is you want to do it you want the prices for your projects.
Yeah, that was the original reason. Yeah, but now we have a following for saying people that rely on us, and we want to give them customer service and that type of thing. So it's a little bit different now, but originally I was just like, look, I need to rehab more houses. Sure, I'll rehab yours for a month because I'm not ready for this crew for another month and a half or 2 months or whatever.
Well, it's interesting that you're in here today, because literally a week ago, last Friday, we had Elizabeth Never Ready, shout out. She's from, I can't say her name, from Houston, and literally that's what she was talking about, how she has 2 or 3 crews. But there she is right there. Hey, Elizabeth, shout out to you. But basically, she has her crews, and she does 1 or 2 big $1 million homes. But obviously, you got to keep your guys busy unless you're going to lose them. And next thing you know, if you're in this business, having good people is hard to keep. Or not hard to keep, but you don't want to lose them.
Well, you have a training that goes into those, and a time vested into those people, and they have time vested into you. So if you lose them, it costs you so much more to get a crew who's going to come and do mistakes and do things that you don't want to do, versus do things how you're expecting them to be done, as far as quality, as far as time, as preference, cleanliness, that type of thing.
So starting out, obviously, if I'm an investor, or if I'm doing 1 or 2 jobs a month or 1 or 2 jobs a quarter, like would you recommend other investors kind of take that model that you've done and then maybe Elizabeth is doing, where you actually have full-time crews? Or is it better to go, I mean, I know you have Renovation Gurus, so your answer is going to be like, no, hire me, duh. But I mean, let's walk down that thought process real quick.
So there's a couple of things. If you're doing high-end rehabs, a lot of times those rehabs are 4, 6, 8 months anyways. I mean, they're $200,000, $300,000 rehabs. So in that instance, if you're buying 2 houses a year, you could keep that crew busy for forever.
Right.
Okay. On the other side, there's the little guy, the guy who's doing 1 house every quarter or something like that. Well, he doesn't have enough time, probably time or experience, to keep that one crew busy, and he's going to constantly be hiring new crews, training new crews, or bringing in partial crews to fix his rehab. One thing I do not recommend is definitely hiring them on a W-2 basis. Once they become an employee, not a contractor, then your life is going to get a little bit more difficult as far as liability and that type of stuff. One thing that is nice about hiring a contractor is when you don't have work for them, you just say, hey, I don't have work for you, I'll hit you up when I get another rehab.
Right.
But if you're hiring them directly, then they're going to expect, you know, taxes and wages and all that.
Benefits.
That brings in a whole bunch of time off and stuff like that. If you hire a W-2, they're like, oh, I'm taking Friday, Saturday off. If you hire a contractor, they're getting paid by the job, hopefully.
Right.
And they're like, I'm going to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I'm going to get up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm going to work until 10 at night, because the sooner they get done, the sooner that they get paid, and then you move on. So
I feel like we could go completely like 3 hours on this topic.
Probably so.
But we're talking about the mistakes that the investors make, because I think too often people watch the shows that are on TV and be like, oh, that's simple. The worst thing that can happen is a pipe is missing. And there's going to be these friendly contractors, these guys over here, they're going to save me, and they're going to do everything for us. So first and foremost, just to hit you like, you know, right off the bat, is what are like the top few mistakes that investors make on their fix and flips?
So there's a lot of things that you can miss on a bid. It's very easy to walk by. For example, you may not look at the dead tree in the backyard. Everyone walks past it, but when you get to a conventional loan, that dead tree will fall on the house, so you have to cut it down. And that could be a $600 or $800 change because everybody missed it. But there's a lot of, first of all, a lot of houses that we walk have no power, have no water on. So that by itself, you're missing stuff. The dishwasher doesn't work. The toilet actually leaked, but you didn't know it. The electrical box is no good, or outlets are actually burnt. So there's things in the rehab that if you didn't know, if you don't look at it like from the eyes of a contractor or from the eyes of who's going to move in there, and you're just like, oh, this needs paint, this needs carpet, that's probably going to get you in trouble, because very, very few houses that we see just need paint and carpet, right? They need baseboards. They need, the cabinet doors are crooked. The drain doesn't actually work. Plumbing by far is the worst unexpected expected issue. Like you're going to have issues with it. If you're lifting the foundation here in Texas, you probably have a plumbing problem. And if there's a foundation problem, there's another subline problem. You have a drainage problem, you have a retaining wall, you have a fresh line sewer, you have some sort of other existing problem. So a lot of times, especially when we're new, we're like, one, you're going to do it yourself. I don't ever recommend doing it yourself. And I'm not saying that because I'm a GC. I just think your time is spent better doing something else. And most people are jack of all trades and master of none. Right? So they think that they can paint and think they can do trim work and they think they can lay hardwood floor, but they are somebody I would fire because I wouldn't stand behind their quality. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you're trying to rehab it, you lose time, you lose money. Sometimes you have to do that because you just have no other option, no other resource, but I don't recommend that because you're probably not as good of a contractor as you think you are.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of other things like roofing, for example. You look at the roof, you say, okay, that roof looks bad, but how bad is it? And where people get stuck is it had 2 or 3 layers of shingles on it. It actually had no underlayment on it. On pier and beams, we just did a bathroom that we tore up the floor, and it was actually a 2x4 floor instead of like a 2x6 floor. Well, when you don't do, say, a full inspection on it, you're kind of taking a gamble but just assume something's probably going to pop up that you didn't see. And most investors don't have an eye to see what actually needs to be done, because they look at this as, hey, paint and carpet. But in order to do paint and carpet, you need to do the underline of the floor, you need to do the tack strips, you need to do, for paint, for example, you have to cover everything, you have to tape off everything, you have to texture everything. If you're doing a texture match, that's completely different than a full texture. Has to dry right, the paint has to dry right. Okay, I'm just going to paint it. Well, if you have no heat, you can't paint the house because your mud and your paint won't dry right.
Right. Already we're hitting a lot of topics.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the bid, because you're talking about the bid. Because if I'm just Joe Schmo investor looking at a house from the very beginning, that I'm not at a bid stage. I'm still in that scope of work, just getting a kind of an estimate. So what are mistakes that, other than just not seeing the obvious that everybody makes? Because the first thing you said was that dead tree.
Sure.
How do I prevent myself from making that mistake? I mean, other than just have a GC that I trust that's not going to miss everything.
Sure.
Because in that scenario, you basically said that everybody else missed it too.
Sure.
So how do you make sure you see everything?
Man, I wish that there was a really good answer for that, but there's not. We're having a conversation where we're looking at a house. You're walking through a house, it's a hoarder house, it smells like 50 cats live there, and sometimes you're missing the fact that it had 2 outlets on it instead of, the 2 prongs instead of the 3 prongs.
Right.
I don't know if there's a foolproof way other than creating, as time goes on, a checklist of things that you've missed on prior properties. There's a lot of checklists out there. Actually, I've done trainings on this in the past on things that are missed on bids. Just knowing what is missed is one thing. I always recommend that you walk your property and you write down everything that you want, and then you compare that to your bids that you're going to get, because a lot of times things that you said you wanted are just flat out missed by the contractor. For example, before we started Renovation Gurus, a contractor hit me for a 30% change order, and the items he missed on it was exterior paint, exterior siding, and we clearly walked around the house, and we clearly had talked about those particular items. But I was so green that I did what everybody else does, which I never recommend, but this is what everyone's going to do, is you go flip through all your pages, you go all the way down to the bottom, you say, okay, it's $26,000, there's my bid, and boom, you go on. And you don't know if the foundation bid is on there, you don't know if all of your stuff that you had discussed is on there. And then if it looks broken, you probably can't repair it. I don't know how else to say it, but as an investor who is looking at the numbers and the cost, we always want to say, hey, look, I'll just throw tape on it, or we'll just glue that to the wall, or we'll put some Bondo on that, or something like that. Most of the time, a repair is not going to be a full fix. So there's not, in my opinion, I don't think there's a full way to not miss stuff other than through experience. And you can learn a bunch from other people who are doing rehabs. Hey, what did you miss? What did you get a change order on? And then just kind of take note of those particular
I think
items.
also, like, mainly just being patient and that experience, because maybe you don't have the experience, but if you look at it very slowly and take the time and know your numbers. We always talk about knowing your numbers, and that is, it goes from knowing the comps to knowing the rehab numbers to knowing all those. I know it's easy for me to say know your numbers, but it's absolutely true. Daniel and I, we were looking at a house, I think in November, December-ish, and we did a quick video, it's on Facebook somewhere, where literally it was just like the house is falling apart, but the thing that most people would miss is it had a carport in the back. But all the neighbors back and forth to the left, they all had garages. So when you had that carport, if you wanted to be a comp, you would have to convert it to a garage.
Yeah, or adjust accordingly to your price, but if it doesn't have a garage.
Right, but the whole point is if you didn't take a moment and pause to really look and just make note of everything. I think the 3-pronged electrical socket versus the 2-pronged, I think a lot of people would miss that just because they're like, oh, cool. They get bought up in the hype of ooh, I have a property, I have a house.
There's some other things that happen that most just people in general, even contractors, might not know, because sometimes when you install one thing, you need to do another thing.
Right.
For the best example of this is an AC unit. You have an older house, 1950. It's got a Federal Pacific box in it. The Federal Pacific box is going to get flagged on inspection. It has to be replaced, or the house might burn down. That's what the inspector is going to tell you. Okay. But if you want a new air condition, because the house never had an air condition, you have a price for an air condition, but you also have to build a box to build the airflow for that air condition. You might have to build out a closet or something up on top of the attic, so that's another cost. You have to put power to the AC, and then you're going to have to upload or update your electrical panel so you have enough juice to power your AC. So sometimes when people train like hard numbers, hey, it's $4,500 for an AC or whatever it is, well, that's true for a swap, but that doesn't include your light switch, that doesn't include your build-up, that doesn't include your platform, that doesn't include your wiring, that doesn't include your electrical panel on the outside, and that's very easily missed because people say, okay, I want a new AC, but to get that AC in there might be a couple other processes in order to get it.
And then building on what you said earlier about the biggest one is plumbing, is I think a lot of people forget, or maybe it's not that they forget, but they don't think about it. They just see the line item foundation, and they don't realize that, hey, specifically here in Texas, if you're doing foundation, you're repiping that.
We almost never don't do anything with the plumbing when there is a foundation lift. The foundation will actually cause the problem of the plumbing sometimes. And then if there's ever interior cracks, so you have the exterior perimeter of the house and you have the interior, if there's cracks on the interior walls, on your door jambs, that type of thing, I would say 100% of the time you have some sort of plumbing leak, and it's probably worse than what would happen on the outside perimeter of the house. So.
But the whole point of that was to go back to you saying that if you're fixing this, you're most likely going to have to go A, B, C, 1, 2, 3 down the chain.
Yeah, for example, you fix the foundations, your windows break, now you have a plumbing problem. Because you have a plumbing problem, you had to dig up the yard. Because you dug up the yard, you ruined the sidewalk, and you have a landscaping issue.
Did you get all that? but again, about, okay, so how do I prevent, other than just knowing all there is to know about fixing a house, which we're all students when it comes to real estate. You're always learning, and I've said this several times, if you think you know everything about real estate, run to the bathroom and slap yourself in the mirror. Just slap. I mean, you don't. You're always learning. You should always be a student. But that being said, how do I take measures as maybe a newer investor, maybe an investor? I don't have a full GC behind me. How do I prevent myself from making those common mistakes of annotating everything and then also just realizing that there's a lot more to it?
The only two solutions that come to mind is buy it cheaper. Like if you buy it cheaper and you have a huge margin, then you can always cushion yourself. And then when you do get your rehab bid, I mean, we go hot and heavy sometimes and buy from wholesalers, but I own a remodeling company. I'm a couple hundred houses into this, so I kind of know. I've seen this same rehab over and over. Most people don't do that. I think you need to add a grace budget always. Like, just assume that there's going to be some sort of deviation from your original scope of work and budget for it, because if you're naive not to think that something might possibly happen, especially once your rehab, say, goes over $25,000 or $30,000. You're busting out walls, you're working plumbing, things along those lines. So I think buy it cheaper and give yourself some grace, and hopefully your grace is enough to cover your uh-ohs.
Yeah, and Corey, I like that. We'll get to that here in a second. So other than just those two things, where I guess that's really one thing, is just knowing your scope of work. What are things that people are doing? I just stuttered the hell out of that. But what are some stupidity that you see out there?
A lot of stupidity. So people do like makeshift rehabs. For example, they don't think that the property needs to be textured when it really does need to be textured. So they're like, oh, just put paint on this. But if you don't actually prep it and prime it, that's one thing. Oh, or if you're change the scope or your exit strategy in the middle of a rehab. For example, I have gone into a rehab thinking that it was going to be a rental, and then I decided, well, no, I'm already this far into it. Why don't we put an extra $10,000 into it, and then we'll make it a flip? So if you change your scope of work, that will typically alter your budget. For example, if you were in a hard money loan and the hard money company gave you $30,000, but now you changed what you were going to do. You're going to blow out a wall, or you're going to add a driveway or a carport, or convert the carport to a garage. Well, now you add an extra X amount of money, and now how does that play into your contractors? I think,
because the hard money lender's not going to give you more money.
Yeah, the hard money lender's not going to give more money. You might have to take out something that you already put in some situations, like can lights, for example. Hey, I want to add can lights. Well, that's great, but how are we going to get power? We have to do at least one light switch to the can lights, and that's not always as easy as it can. So when you deviate from your original scope, that's something that happens. Not knowing what your other comps are like, we see that sometimes. So what we do when we go to rehab a property, we use Zillow. and we just look at the pictures. That's all we're doing, just looking at pictures in the house.
Not looking at numbers.
Not looking at numbers. We're just looking at pictures because our client might come to us and say, hey, look, I want to put $20,000 into this. And we'll say, okay, you can do that on this one because all of this is 1990s original tile. They all have laminate countertops, and that will be a comparable rehab. But if something's decked out, it's got travertine, seamless glass shower doors, double vanities, things like that, and then they're still trying to put that same $20,000 into a $250,000 home, that's not really going to work out right. So if you don't know what your comps are, you need to know what your comps are so you don't over rehab your property. It's so easy, especially for the new person who has this idea that you need to take something that looks like junk and turn it into something that's awesome. Right?
Right.
You can over rehab because you have a personal taste or a personal preference, and that's okay if you want to be a fashion designer, if you want to design houses, but if you're in it to make money, you may want to trim down your rehab. I think that a lot of people over rehab or under rehab based upon being ignorant, or maybe that's the wrong way to say it, but just trying to skimp on what it really needs, not being open to what it really needs, or, hey, here's my personal preference. I actually want 6 dishwashers myself, so everyone else is going to want 6 dishwashers in the kitchen as well.
Yeah, and I think, that's a huge nugget right there, is I think too often people, when they're running comps, they're just looking at the numbers. They're looking at square foot. They're looking at this. They're looking at the year built. They're this, the price. But comps are more than just the numbers. They're the pictures behind the numbers.
The land size.
The lots, all of it.
Yeah, the landscape and the pool. There's a lot more to it. But yeah, the pictures are huge.
That's why we always say that running comps is more of an art form versus a science, because there is a lot of feel. Yes, you could probably numerically break it down to where it's factually here and there. But as humans, we're not computers. We are humans, so there is that kind of art factor to it.
Sure.
I forgot where we're at after that. My bad.
So we see it a lot of times where wholesalers say, hey, this is worth X amount. And the truth is it is, but not with that rehab. If you're going to rehab it, you have to look at the pictures. And then how are you going to get your house to look like the pictures of your top comps if you're going to push the value to the top of the market?
So let's talk about the flips versus the rentals. Because I know, like, back in the day, there was a clear dividing line between how you would fix up a flip and how you fix up a rental. And I think, I hear conflicting opinions nowadays because on one hand, you still have the old guard, which is, well, it's a rental, just throw some spray paint on that thing. And some people are like, no, rentals nowadays, you need to be basically the same as a flip. So you're the professional, you're out there doing this. What are you seeing out there?
So I see sometimes a flip and a rental is going to be the same rehab, right? Say everything is bowed, everything is crooked, everything is just nasty. Maybe the cat lady lived there, or a hoarder lived there, or a squatter lived there, something like that. Well, you have to redo everything because you can't even paint it without cleaning it and fixing it and repairing it. So that's one situation that I see a lot where they're the exact same. Then there's another situation where you have the blue tile, you have the pink tile, the bathroom's in really good shape. Grandma lived there for 70 years. That's got shag carpet, but she vacuumed every day. She cleaned it. The bones of the house are really, really good.
Right.
And a paint and floor on that is okay, but just like we were talking about with the pictures of a flip, the same thing goes with the rental, right? You look at your rental comps. If everyone's rented for $1,250 and they're sick and they're decked out and they have granite, well, if you upgrade the property but you still have pink and blue bathrooms, well, then you're probably not going to get the same premium for rent as you would for that. So I think some people they try to go for that $1,250 rent when really they now got to knock down to $1,050 or $1,100 or something like that because they didn't do the full remodel.
Standards.
Yeah. And then on a flip, a flip is always a little bit more. I'm going to go back to the rental. The rental, a lot of times people are trying to reuse stuff, and sometimes they try to reuse stuff that is actually broken. For example, they could have a pink bathroom. They never really use the toilet a lot. You get a family in there that's now using the toilet, using the shower, which is completely different than you just turning it on for 5 seconds and then saying, okay, it works. Well, now, like, the toilet rings are leaking and maybe a valve is starting to drip. Once you start to use a house that's been sitting for a long time, you're going to come into issues. So on the rental, sometimes people try to skimp and say, oh, I don't need a new toilet because it looks good. But once you actually start to use it, you're going to find out you should have replaced the toilet in the first place because your tenant's going to call you and say, hey, everything's flooded. I got this, and this happening. All right, moving to a flip. Typically on a flip, you're going to remodel everything possible. One thing, this is just a little gold nugget that I see on flips, is people say we're going to save those cabinets, the kitchen cabinets particularly. Some kitchen cabinets, they look like they're wood, but they're really like an MDF material or like cardboard per se. I don't know how else to say it. So if you paint that product will actually start to bubble, and the cabinets will look worse than what they did before you painted them because of the material that the cabinets are actually made out of. Once you start to open up the doors and actually get underneath the sink, a lot of that times that will be rotted out. So what looks great in a picture, the cabinets are really janky. Does that make sense? So on a flip, you see a lot of different variables. The bigger your flip, the bigger your numbers are going to be. Once we start tearing into walls, ripping out cabinets, then you're going to find other stuff. For example, you could rip out your kitchen cabinets and find out that the garbage disposal actually never had a switch. It had garbage disposal down there, but it was never used. And now you actually have to put a switch in. But if you would have never messed with it, you would have never known about some of these issues. So I think on a flip, you have to be a little bit more, you have to have a little bit more grace budget, because I believe you're going to find more stuff that are wrong. On a rental, just fix it right and you'll be okay. If you try to skimp on it, those things are probably going to come to bite you once you have a tenant in the property.
So earlier you were talking about, the end-all be-all is just to buy deeper. But in a market like we have, where people are buying at crazy rates, I still am a firm believer of, wait till it's a deal. Don't get emotional. Don't buy it just because you have to have a deal. You got to wait for a deal. How do you prevent these people that are spending 85, 90% of value to do a rehab? I mean, there's literally zero margin there, no margin for error.
Sure. I think you need to, there again, buy it cheaper, buy it right. If the best deal that you can possibly buy is the deal that you didn't buy in the first place, right? I lost over, 6 figures on one property. I actually bought that property right, believe it or not. But if I would have bought it even tighter, even more wrong, for say, then, how much worse of a situation would I been in? Right. Okay. You need to know that you're going to walk away from a deal. If it's not a deal, it's not a deal. In Dallas, Fort Worth, there's 9 million people that live here. You only need to find a couple houses a month, right, or a year, depending on whatever your strategy is. You just have to say no. If the numbers don't work for you and you don't like the margin, then walk away. The higher you buy, the higher your risk is. I have a very high tolerance for risk.
But you have a GC company.
I have a GC company. I bought hundreds of houses. We've rehabbed like 800 houses. So I kind of know what I'm getting myself into. And I get burned. So. And I get burned a lot. There's stuff that I don't see even being a GC. Right. Going back to what we were talking about before, how do you miss stuff? You miss stuff because there's a hoarder living there and there's a dog chewing on your ankle and you're trying to close a deal because there's 6 people in the driveway trying to buy the same house, right? So that's why you miss stuff. But just buy it right and don't be scared to say no.
But I do like your point, though. The best deal is the one you actually walked away from.
That's true.
Just because, like you said, you lose your ass. I mean, you lost 6 figures. Yeah. There's tons of, just go to a networking event and you find somebody that's like, who at least looks like they know what they're doing, and just say, hey, what's the most money you lost on a deal? If they say, I've never lost money, be like, nah, you're full of shit.
Yeah, they haven't done enough rehabs, right?
Yeah.
If you do enough, you'll come into a point where something crazy will happen. You'll miscomp a house. You will over rehab it, under rehab it. You'll get busted by the city. Things will happen. Your neighbor's house will burn down, right? Mm-hmm. We bought a house one time where there was somebody died in the property, so it was hard to sell, and the neighbor's house looked like doo-doo. So we said, hey, look, we'll paint your house for you, our expense. He said, don't worry about it, we'll do it this week. And he painted his own house Barney purple, which was way worse than how it looked before, and it just killed our comps because you comp that one house, but you don't see what the neighbor's house looks like, or you don't realize 6 pit bulls are next door and nobody can walk around the property.
So you said you told the neighbor, hey, we'll paint your house. He's like, no worry, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And he paints it purple.
Yeah, it was Barney purple, like the Vikings color, Barney purple, and then like yellow windows.
Lovely.
Yeah, which got even better feedback, I guess, from people.
So real quick, just because we try to keep this as educational as possible, and I know we've probably already defined it through just regular conversation, but I need to remind myself a lot that people don't know terms. They don't. I don't want to say that people are stupid, but maybe they're ignorant to what this means or that means. So you talked about over rehabbing and under rehabbing. Let's spend like a minute just to define what that means.
Okay, so an over rehab would be you're putting way too much in the property versus what the property needs. For example, you're rehabbing it to what a $600,000 house is, and you're playing in a $95,000 house. You're putting seamless showers in a $90,000 house. You're gutting the bathrooms completely. You're doing oversized master bathrooms. You're blowing out walls and you don't need to, right? And an under rehab would be, hey, you're leaving all of the doors on the hardware. You're not replacing the flat panels into 6 panels at minimum. You have really nice tile in the house, and it's from the 90s or something like that. However, all of your comps have hardwood floors in them. So that would be an example of under rehabbing, because it looks good. That doesn't mean that you're going to get the value of your other houses unless you rehab it to your comparable properties.
Thank you. So we're about halfway through this thing. If you like what you're seeing, please give us some likes. If you have questions, please drop them in the comment section. We will get to them. I've already noticed that we do have several questions coming in, so keep on dropping them in here. I promise we'll get to them. We won't leave until we get to hit all of them. But finally, please share it. We do these videos for free, and we're trying to get out there. Facebook loves us at times, so they prevent us from sharing, but whatever. But if you like what you're seeing, give us a like, give us some love. Ron has graced us with his time this morning to get some information out there, and hopefully there's value, and hopefully you get some nuggets, because that's why we're here. And then finally, if you don't like our page, give us a like. I mean, it's free, it's easy. If you've never been to Propelio, never done a trial, again, it's free. Give us a try. Anyway, so let's move ahead and talk about, we were talking about the hard money loans and when you have money, and then you did mention about going off to left field and doing something else. What happens when the money runs out?
Everyone's in a jam, all right? So how hard money companies work is they give money based upon rehab that has been done. So they send the inspector out. The inspector says, hey, all this money has this work has been completed. Here's your $10,000 draw. Okay, that comes to the investor. The investor pays their contractor or uses that money to rehab the property. If the work's not done, then the hard money company does not give the draw. Okay, so that means if you're stopped, if you're in a jam for some reason, let's say that you got a $15,000 change order for plumbing. I'm just making it up. So, and you don't have $15,000 because you took all of your money to get the hard money loan. But now your contractor, if he's looking for another draw, he might stop your job completely, and you might have to go and get creative to get your money. We had one guy, he went and got money from his daughter's education account, used all of her education money, and put it into the property. Sometimes people are borrowing money from other people. You can start to use your credit cards. I think that you shouldn't be in that rehab unless you actually have some money to fix your O's. And one thing that we see a lot of times is people over leverage themselves. They have 50 grand, which is awesome, but not when you're in 4 rehabs and you roll each rehab $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000.
Yeah, one thing I've seen in the past is you need to know your scope of work, and you need to know your draw schedule, because even though you're working on the house and you think you're progressing towards that goal of being done and that goal of getting another draw, if the hard money lender is set it up to where we're paying you when the kitchen is done, we're paying you when the living room's done, we're paying you when whatever y'all define as draw schedule, but you have a contractor in there who does half of a kitchen, half of a bathroom, half of this, and technically your project is half done, guess what? That hard money lender is not going to give
Zero.
they're going to give you no money for what you've already done, because they're paying on specific segments done. Have you ever seen that? Or
yeah,
is that
I see that all the
common to
time.
you?
Matter of fact, when we first started Renovation Gurus, we were remodeling for a hard money company. We did a repair to a floor that it needed like staining on it and varnish. And so in that particular room, we weren't able to paint. Right, we painted the whole rest of the house. They called for the hard money draw. Hard money lender came, one room not painted, and he said, "I'm not giving you any money for the paint." So there's a couple things that you can do. in this particular situation. First of all, hard money lenders have a draw schedule form. It's typically a really cheesy Excel spreadsheet that says something like kitchen, bathroom, paint, carpet, flooring, something like that. You need to take that and tell your hard money lender you're going to throw it in the garbage. Okay? And what I mean by that is you rewrite it for him. For example, if you're doing kitchen, don't do kitchen $5,000. Break down your kitchen. I'm going to do this much in hardware. I'm going to do lower cabinets. I'm going to do upper cabinets. I'm going to do this many cabinets. That way, if you come into a jam, let's just say you call for the draw and your kitchen was supposed to be almost complete and only your lower cabinets are there, at least you'll get money for the lower cabinets and not the upper cabinets, because it's way better to get some money than no money at all. And from a contractor standpoint, there's a way that we remodel hard money houses of people who are using a hard money loan different than we would a normal house, and we're doing that on purpose to get as much money as we can, so we have money to finish out the rehab.
Yeah, and on that, make sure you have a relationship with a hard money lender before you throw their work in the garbage.
That's correct. That's true.
I mean, essentially the reason they give that to you is because 99.9% of investors, A, aren't really fully aware that they can do their own, and B, maybe don't really have the effort or the knowledge to do it themselves. So I think that is a huge golden nugget right there for if you are using hard money loans, lenders to do your projects, is to rewrite a draw schedule that is beneficial to you, your contractor, and to the hard money lender. Because again, the hard money lender, they're making money by giving you money. They don't want to not give you money.
That's right.
They want you to succeed because as soon as you finish that project, hopefully you're going to do another project and hopefully still use them as a lender. So everybody in this business, contrary to belief, wants you to succeed. But that being said, going back to the point is, make sure if you're on a draw schedule, make sure you're rehabbing to the draw schedule, maybe not necessarily to rehabbing the house at what you think would be logical.
That's correct. There's another thing that you can do, and that's have your contractor line itemize everything in a crazy manner. So we typically don't have a problem changing the draw schedule with a hard money company. And our bids are insanely detailed, and they'll actually take our bid as the draw schedule because it's so detailed. You know, I have a sink, I have a sink drain, I have this many hardware, this many cabinets, and then we go through and highlight everything that's been done, and we highlight it for them and then turn it into the hard money lender. Hey, go through the property. You can see all this stuff that has been done, and then they'll give us that exact amount that was on the bid because it's so detailed. And if you can get a detailed bid and have your hard money company use that as a draw schedule, you're going to free up a lot of money to keep the project going.
And I know we keep talking about draw schedule, and it's probably obvious to anybody that's been in real estate, but real quick, what is a draw schedule?
So a draw schedule is simply you're going to meet with your contractor, or this can also work with hard money lenders, and you're going to give your contractor probably so much money based upon progress. There's two separate ways typically that it works out with a hard money loan. If your contractor is taking money up front, so you're giving them an initial draw and an initial down payment, okay, you're probably going to have to come out of that money has to come out of pocket. So if it was $20,000, I'm just throwing that up, you would take $20,000 of your own funds and you would give it to your contractor. Okay, your contractor does his draw schedule, or hey, at 25%, 25%, 25%, when we're done, this is how much you're going to pay me and when you're going to pay me, and this is the estimated date. That would be a draw schedule. Okay, and then at the end of that project, the hard money company will give you your deposit back. So that's one, and the other function is when the contractor does all the work, and then you pay them for the work that garage. So it already passed inspection. They already had pictures of it. But they actually removed the rebar and put it into another property.
How much is rebar? I mean,
$1,000 or something. But if you did that on 30 different items in the house, where so let's say you put all the fixtures in, and then you took all those fixtures out and put them in the next house. I mean, you probably get caught eventually, but yeah, things like that do happen.
That's great. Elizabeth has a great point about using your hard money lenders to get your referrals for your contractors, because the hard money lenders, they know which contractors are going to give good quality work. So there's a nugget for you guys.
Yeah.
If you're looking for contractors, contact your hard money lenders and find out who they like.
If you're looking for deals, contact your hard money lenders. They know people who have good deals. No one talks about that though.
So there we go. Let's see. Can contractor lien cloud title and be required to be paid in the event of a sale?
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah.
Unless they didn't record it right, and the title company's really good at dropping it off, but most time, yes.
Okay, more and more and more. A lot of comments. Thanks, guys. This is the whole point of this: is getting in the conversation, getting people involved.
Yeah.
That's why we do Facebook Live versus just record it, throw it out HD, which we do that too at our YouTube page, youtube.com/Propelio.
You should flex your muscles when you say that.
I don't know. Where's my dancing guy? Anyway. There's a flood of crap contractors in Houston. Yes, we know that. No contractors to rehab via YouTube. Learning to rehab. Got it. What she was referring to was contractors learning how to rehab via YouTube.
Yeah, there's always that one situation where you don't know exactly how to do it, but if you watch enough YouTube, you'll figure it out. I just met a guy who's trading cyber currency. He made $800,000 since November off of YouTube. That's beyond this conversation.
For Bitcoin?
No, for Litcoin. Yeah.
Oh God.
But he learned it off YouTube. I'm saying that there's some knowledge you can pull from YouTube. When you're
absolutely.
Stuck on
here's the thing: is we're big. Just another subtle plug for Propelio. We're huge on getting mentors in this business to learn how to do this business. Your local mentor, somebody that you can actually have a phone call with, actually go out and touch or do a Skype interview. Those are legit. Those are important. You need to have those people in your life. The $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 training programs that kind of fly by night, go here and here and here and here to charge you an arm and a leg to train you how to do that. Why? Go to YouTube. There's plenty of sites out there.
Much.
Propelio, we're actually in the process of releasing our academy where we're just going to teach this stuff for free. We hope that you use Propelio.com for your comps. But as far as learning how to invest, there's so much free knowledge out there. There's so many books on Amazon that you can go for. There's no point in doing that. But the YouTube thing is a great resource to learn. Again, subtle plug, go to Propelio.tv. I think this is going to be our last question. If you do have more questions, drop them in. I know we're about an hour and 10 minutes in, so kind of a longer video, but hey, it's all good. Trenton said, I've been a contractor in both residential and commercial arenas. Y'all gave out some good, solid advice today. Great job. Oh, that wasn't a question. It was just love. We love. So, Ron, thank you so much for coming in. Again, if somebody wants to do business with you, what are you looking for as an investor?
What am I looking for people who want to do business with us?
Well, I'm going to give you an opportunity to say, because I know you're a contractor, so you're always looking for houses to do. Mm-hmm. But as an investor, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so I like the 200 and under price range, and I really like the crap holes that nobody else likes. Mm-hmm. And I like the drug needles, the pit bulls, the hood houses. The hood houses. Yeah, I mean they don't have to be in the hood. That just ends up where $30,000 and $50,000 and $70,000 houses happen to be.
Right.
I don't care if they're brick. They can be 2-1s. They can be. We can convert the garage. I don't care how bad they are, but that's typically what I play in because I own to finance a lot. Mm-hmm. And if you have a lead for that, Ron at renovationgurus.com is the best way to send me something. Email me or call me. I look at a crazy amount of houses, but that's what I'm actually looking for as an investor because I'm owner financing. That's why.
Add them to your buyer's list.
Yep.
From Renovation Gurus, what are you looking for?
For Renovation Gurus, newbies are really good to work with because they need a lot of guidance. Mm-hmm. So that we kind of see 3 different processes. You got this guy that's getting started, he needs us. Then he thinks that he gets smarter, she thinks that she knows what to do, and then they go hire some contractors. That works out really good. They get burned a little bit. They have some successes, but then they want to scale their business. So now they're doing 3, 4, 7, 10 rehabs a month. That next stage is really good for us as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're going to move on and try to do it on their own. That's cool. You can make a lot of money doing that. But if you want to scale, we're really good as a turnkey process, giving you an accurate bid and rocking and just rocking and rolling. You don't have to actually show up to the property unless you want to.
Yeah, and I think that's very similar to bear with me because it might take a second to get to the point I'm trying to make. But I think using a GC like yourself is similar to using private capital or using hard money. Is even if you have a giant bank account, yes, you could buy the property outright, but using somebody else's money, yes, that's you're going to make less profit dollars, but your percentage is much higher on your cash-on-cash return. So same thing with the GCs is you may make less money, less profit, but your headaches, your scalability is much higher.
That's correct.
Or your headaches are lower, but your scalability is higher.
And if you're working with the banks, if you did 2 houses a year or a month, let's just say, and you did $2 million in revenue, that's awesome. But once you hit that 5 and 7 and 10 million, then the banks will actually give you more money. So you might want to scale, and plus and this is just my opinion, when you have multiple assets out there making you multiple streams of revenue, then you kind of minimize your risk as well. You might get hit on this one, but now you're rocking 10 houses where you made it up. Plus, you also have to look at your time. What's your time worth? To me, my time worth way more than most people can actually pay me, and I like to spend time with my family, and I like to be doing other stuff than running my business.
Right.
And when I made the transition, so I actually hire Renovation Gurus on my own personal stuff. It's weird. I pay them full margin, but they allow me to go and do other stuff in my business that I don't have to do.
And that's almost like a subtle plug to yesterday's Grant Teach or something. We were talking about setting your priorities, like your family or where is it? Is it your work life, your career, your family, and everything else, and just however you structure it? There is no wrong. Just be honest with yourself what that structure is. As far as final tips, what is like the biggest tip that you can give to maybe not a newbie, maybe not an expert, just an investor in general? Like I met you at a bar at a network event. Like what could you tell me that will better my investment game?
The best thing you can do as far as the remodeling goes is get a extremely detailed bid. That will keep you safe in all situations if you're firing or hiring or whatever. Just as far as rehab goes, that's the most important possible thing you can do. The other thing is bounce stuff off people before you make a decision. Like if you know other people in the community, but hey, I'm fixing to buy this, I have it under contract, I have a 7-day option, what's your ARV? One thing that I do is I go to hard money lenders sometimes because they have buyers for houses if I'm wholesaling, which I don't do a lot, but they might have a buyer, and I'll say, well, what's your ARV? And if I go to 3 hard money lenders and they line up with my ARV, then I feel pretty good. But if I go to someone and they're like, that's worth 175, and I thought it was worth 205, and I have someone else at 155, well, now I might cushion myself drastically and go on the lower end of what that possibly might be worth.
Yeah, so as always, real estate investing is a team sport. Ron and I could be competitors yesterday, and today we could be JV partners. So therefore, don't burn bridges. It is a team sport. Bounce those ideas off of each other. And that's why networking is so important. So next time you go to an event, hell, if you're here in the comment section of this video and you see somebody you've never seen before, drop them a DM. Hopefully it's an appropriate DM, or just say, hey Elizabeth, nice to meet you, I'm Ryan. Hey Daniel, nice to meet you, I'm Ryan. And networking is strong, it's powerful, that's why, because you could do exactly what Ron was just saying and bounce those ideas, whether it be numbers, whether it be referrals for GCs, whether it just be for typical advice. So again, thank you so much for checking out this video with us. If you've never checked out Propelio, please give us a try. If you haven't liked our page, give us a like. If you like this video, give us a like. Sometimes I feel like a 12-year-old teenager going, give me my likes and my love and my shares, but it is what it is. So give us a like, give us some shares, check out Renovation Gurus. Thanks again, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.